welcome to Starless Books. Welcome back to my channel. Books that I have DNF'd. I've been wanting to do this video for a really long time. Honestly, when it comes to DNFing books, it's been really difficult for me to do that. And then there's a lot of books I'm just like, maybe I'm just not in the mood for this, but like I still want the story, so like maybe I'll come back to it later. But I feel like at least in this past like few months, I've gotten a lot better at just calling it and realizing there's still so many more other books out there that I want to experience. Like, why continue on with a book that's just not bringing me joy? This was going to be a list of books I've just DNF'd in 2020. There's some on here from 2019, and there's even some on here from 2018 actually. I think maybe only like two. The first one, I feel like when I first was reading this book, I talked about it a lot, and I basically already explained why I DNF'd that book. But I have a lot of new people coming to my channel. Thank you guys so much. I am so thankful. And maybe you haven't heard me talk about this book, so it's in this video. Box 21 by Rosalind Hellström. So this is a Swedish thriller. Any books that are about a different culture are just so immediately intriguing to me, and I want to know about that. Like, I have a whole shelf that's all about cultural books. Maybe I should share that with you guys sometime, like just do like a shelf tour. I was really intrigued by this book, and it was a thriller, and it's not super long, and I was very intrigued by this cover. It looks like an unwound tape. This is about two girls, Lydia and Alina, who came from Lithuania, and they are lured to Sweden, and they get hustled into the sex industry. So this book is told from their perspective. Eventually these girls, I guess, end up seeking revenge on the people that took them. They find some hopeful avenue out, and they seek revenge. And then on the other hand, we are following this other despicable character who has been in and out of jail. He's also in and out of the hospital because he continuously overdoses on heroin, and it goes into very graphic detail on how you shoot up, and it's very disturbing. I feel like this, compiled with a few other books that I've read that are about drug abuse and things like that, I don't like it. This definitely was disturbing enough that you cannot accuse it of romanticizing alcohol and drugs and stuff like that. It was so graphic that I'm just kind of like, we know what that looks like, and I'm not impressed by it. I'm bored with it. I find it very disturbing, and I don't know. I got to a point in this where I was just like, I don't need to read anymore. I was really only interested in the girls, Lydia and Alina's storyline, but then I started to realize as I wasn't enjoying this book that I was like, I already kind of know what's going to happen. They're going to seek revenge. They're probably going to murder the son of a bitch who took them. Good for them. But like, why am I still reading this? Do I need to read all of these pages to get to the... No, I don't. So I'm done. That was that one. Next one is Axios End by Lindsay Ellis. I love this cover, by the way. I still absolutely love this cover. Like, I will probably keep this book even though I didn't finish it, and I probably won't finish it just because I love this cover. I actually tabbed quite a bit in it, and I read about halfway through the book. I think this is a science fiction book. This girl, her father is this embarrassing ball of conspiracy, and she is trying to stay as far away from it as possible, and people always tend to ask her about it, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with it. But then she starts being hunted. People start trying to question her about stuff. I guess her dad disappears, I forget, and then she's befriended by somebody, which I think when you find out who she's befriended by, it's pretty apparent what's going on. And it's really interesting. And that's why I was reading this book. I was very enamored with that. But it got really technical, and it got really political. And I got bored with it. And there was two main reasons why I was reading this. One was I really liked our main character, and her humor is my type of humor. I really loved it. Just like our main character Stevie from Truly Devious. Same type of humor. I love it. I love the snarky and sarcastic descriptions of things, and that was so much this. Like, I featured this in a vlog that I was doing over the summer, and I read a few passages of it because I just thought it was so funny and I just loved the way they described it. But we lost that aspect, and then I was reading for the twist. And then I feel like it revealed what was going on very early on in the second part of this. And then I guess I just got predictable, and I was getting very bogged down with all the technical talk and the political stuff. It just the ins and outs of this conspiracy and the history, and like, I don't know, it just was not sticking with me, and I just got bored with it. I just wanted more of our main character and her relationship with her new friend, and everything they could learn from each other. And I just kind of was over the whole conspiracy thing. Like, I just kind of wanted to get to the point of that, but I wanted to experience the characters more. And so again, this is where my taste of being a very strongly character-driven reader comes through. So yeah, I'm actually really sad that I DNF'd this book, but like, you know, when you're just not enjoying it, you just have to call it. So I would definitely recommend this to people who are serious, really into science fiction, if that kind of stuff doesn't bother you, if you like all that conspiracy and stuff like that. I'm just a different kind of sci-fi reader. I read for maybe a different reason or something like that. So I think maybe I would come back around to this one and give it another shot, and maybe try to overlook some of that stuff and just kind of get to the good stuff just to get through this book. But at this time, I have no intention of picking it up because I have so many other books that I'm trying to read that I know are going to bring me much more joy. So I'm sorry. I do love you. My Eyes Are Up Here by Laura Zimmerman. I basically won this book right before quarantine. I think I actually featured this in the very last haul, so I got it back in August, and they sent me this beautiful book. A beautiful hardback book. I love the colors. They're so bright. When you open it, like bright yellow pages. And I was really excited about this book because it was supposed to be about this girl, like, features body image issues, which we can all relate to, and I feel like it's so important to uplift people and learn to love ourselves, and have books about people who learn to love themselves no matter what shell we are put into. We have a lot of good things, and it's silly to obsess about the things we're not happy with. So I wanted something about that. Now, as most contemporaries go, there's supposed to be a happy resolution to it all, and it even says on here, Greer Wash is a heroine for everyone who's wanted to disappear while also wanting to be seen. Deeply honest, hilarious, and so real. Well, honest, probably. Not only a smart and honest book about body positivity, that I have to disagree with, body positivity, it's a funny and endearing read that will have you cheering for Greer Walsh and celebrating the power of female friendship. Charming, relatable, laugh out loud, hilarious. Sparkling debut. Okay, well, now that I've reread these blurbs, I'm going to actually criticize them a lot. So, as most contemporaries go, there's a resolution, some happy ending, possibly a love, a romance. I did not make it that far. I made it that far. I found this book to be extremely toxic. I feel like it's very triggering. The good things is that the main character describes what it's like to be a young woman with really large breasts. Like, really large. She actually makes a comparison that one of her boobs is the size of her head. And it was actually really interesting to shed light on some of those realities of what it's like to live with something like that. And some of the options she does talk about, getting reduction and stuff like that, but there's either she has to wait a certain amount of time, or different things have to go into that decision. So that was so good and empowering, because I feel like as an outsider looking in, some of those thoughts going through her head, we don't see that. And I feel like it's very important to shed light on that and how somebody feels, because especially young kids in high school, like, kids are fucking mean and they say things, and you know, I'm sure to hear all the things that this poor girl probably hears, or at least what she sees when people look at her. So how this girl and other girls like her feel, it was very good. But she has very extremely self-depreciating commentary, and I found it very excessive, which I'm not denying that it's not real. I'm sure it is real. being so self-depreciating, and it's very sad. It became such a downer, and it's honestly triggering. And I feel like I don't really read a lot of books that I personally find triggering in that way, and I just couldn't take it anymore. And I kind of got the impression, I could be completely wrong, but I got the impression that the love interest, who's given away pretty much right away, I felt like there were certain things, the way she reacted to him were quite uncharacteristic of someone who is so self-depreciating. I could have that wrong as well, honestly, I really could. To me, it didn't really fit. She seemed much more confident in her reactions to him than she seems to feel based on her self-depreciating commentary. So for me, I don't know what that was about. To me, it didn't matter. To me, it didn't pair up. But at this point, I was also very just critical of everything because I just was very angry with how this book was making me feel. Also, I could, again, be totally wrong, but I started to realize that it was really going to piss me off if this boy is the reason that she ultimately learned to love herself because he liked her. He liked her for who she was, so therefore then she could see her self-worth. If that's where this book was going, it was going to piss me the fuck off. But I just strongly felt that that's kind of where this book started to lead to, and obviously I can't tell you for sure. I do not know. If you've read this book, and please just go ahead and tell me what happens. It also could go another way but some sort of breakdown could happen with her character, because that's kind of what happens in these contemporaries. And then she will learn to love herself and then invite him back into her life. It could go that way as well, but then I was like, if that happens and I've already called it, why am I still reading this book? I don't know. I don't care. I just don't think that my psyche could take it. But if you've read it, I do kind of want to know how it wraps up. Please share how it wraps up. Go ahead and spoil it for me. I'm not gonna fucking read this book. So the next one is in my lap, Vassa in the Night by Sara Porter. This is a recent DNF from October. I added this to my TBR to 3 different reading prompts. Basically, it is a retelling of a Slavic folklore. The original title is called Vasilisa the Beautiful. Ultimately about a witch named Baba Yaga, or Baba Yaga. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. I was so excited about this modern retelling. It takes place in New York, and it's Baba Yaga actually haunts this little convenience store and captures this young girl, pay off a debt, and it just got really weird, honestly, and I didn't know what to make of it. I felt like a whole lot of it just came to a screeching halt, and I just didn't know where it was going. Things were just really weird, and I felt like it wasn't explained. I didn't understand what was supposed to be going on. I was just very confused. Maybe if I had stuck it out, it would all come together and make sense. Or maybe if I read the original Vasilisa the Beautiful, then this would make so much more sense or mean so much more to me. I'm ultimately putting this on my DNF list just because I know myself, and I'm probably not, in the end, going to get back to this. Again, there's just so many other good books. But if one day I'm in the mood to maybe read the original, because I am kind of on this long-term project, way out in the future, of doing this whole fairy tale and folklore reading thing. I want to read all the originals, and then I just have this whole idea in my head. It's going to take a long time to finally flesh out, but maybe I will come back to this book one day. But at this time, I'm officially DNFing this book. I got very bogged down. It made me not want to read, and I was like, I just have to, in my mind, just say I'm DNFing this book, and then I can move on. I have 3 more. Where is that other book? Oh, here it is, right here. Another one that I DNF'd is called Bossypants by Tina Fey. I was actually very disappointed that I DNF'd this book. I really love a good, funny book, and her humor is really funny and relatable to start out with. But then it just ceased to be funny. I have to fill up all these pages with just hilarious funniness because I am a comedian, and therefore I must always be funny, and it was not fucking funny. And I really didn't give a fuck about her life. I'm sorry. That's a really shitty way to say it, but I like her movies. This goes into her family life and things like that, and I guess I just got bored. So I DNF'd this book. It was pretty much easy read, but I just quit thinking that it was very compelling or funny. The next one is French Women Don't Get Fat by Marielle Gilano. Now, this is supposed to be about an American woman who goes and spends some time in Paris, and she learns the way that Paris women live their lives, and I was expecting just something different. I was expecting that we would like get to walk a mile in a Parisian woman's shoes and see how they like live their life day to day. But I really was not getting that. This was like a self-help diet book, and that's just not what I wanted when I picked this book up. I got bored, so I'm DNFing this book. I know for a fact there's a book out there like that really literally talks about how just the lifestyle is different from this book, but this book was not it. This did not deliver. Oh, there's quite a few tabs in here. I feel like I want to share some of these things as I talk about this book. The last book I DNF'd in 2020 is The Lightness-Emily Temple. This is about a girl who has these issues with her dad who like abandoned her, and she goes off to basically, he like disappears, and so she tries to go track him down and goes to some of the last places he has known to go to, and she ends up at this retreat place where they believe heavily in Buddhist practices and meditation and have all these classes surrounding these belief system. I guess she always feels kind of like an outsider, and she gets hung up with these other girls who take it to this whole next level and believe in this lightness. And there's like this, the queen bee type got this drama with this guy who's kind of a player, and this girl gets swept up into this whole thing and just almost this spiritual level of reaching this lightness. Too much of that for me. Honestly, it's just way too heavily on this faith base, which I think was really throwing me. Now, that's not the point of this book. This book actually is trying to explain where her mind was at, and then it goes on to many years. Apparently something happens. They get to the crux of this drama, and something bad happens. Somebody ends up dead. And then years later, we kind of figure out what happened, and she's kind of reflecting back on her mental state through all of this, and it's basically a coming of age, realizing her naivety, that this girl was like this, what do you call it when somebody's like kind of godlike? I can't remember what it's like, but she just held this girl up on a pedestal, and this girl was probably the most fucked up of them all, and she just kind of got swept up into it. And like, if you're kind of an outsider, like I've always been, and I've been a kid before, like I could see that happening. I could see that happening with a lot of people. So I kind of feel like there is a relatability to her character. There's an honesty to her character, and it's written beautifully. I feel like we can all at some point have related to her character. But like once you're over 30, like myself, you kind of look back at your past selves and just cringe. At least I do. Maybe that's another reason I just couldn't get on with this book. It was just, I can admit it, I'm a big enough person. I was an idiot when I was younger, and anyways, I'm also a judgy asshole. No, I'm really not. But I also just couldn't get on with the heavy faith base of this book that they relied on to tell the story. And that's purely my personal taste. I think that if that's something that you like, you would like this book. Beyond that, I was really not into the prophetic, deep revelations that are supposedly meant to be so compelling and just crack open reality and lay it bare, give meaning to everything. Yeah. There were a couple of things that did stand out to me that I liked how they were written. Actually, it was a lot, it was very lyrical. I do have to say that. It was beautifully written. But some of the other things that you could just tell were almost just too forceful to be truly prophetic. I could feel Serena watching me. I looked down at the popsicles. They had turned evil and leering in the half light of the tent. So they're talking about this thing called the feeling, okay? Years later, I found out that the feeling is a documented phenomenon and was not, as I had thought, a magic specific to us. That's where I'm kind of talking about, where she thought it was this magical thing as a child, but then as she grew up, she was like, oh, it's actually not that magical. It's quite normal. And we have a name for it now. Actually, here's what it says. Look how quick I am to say us. Foolish thing. Alone. The official term for it is ASMR, Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. And the little alternative versions to us who practice it these days get their feelings via YouTube clips. That was an example of something that I thought was very good, where it took, that's one thing I think I really liked about this book, is it took these side-by-side looks. It would have a few paragraphs of the then, and then her looking back and reflecting on that and bringing truth to what she had initially thought. I liked those. Those were good. This often serves as the first indication that they are irresistibly unlike other girls. I actually posted this in an Instagram post when I first started reading this book. For instance, the first thing TV witches learn to do is levitate objects. She's talking about this lightness and this idea of flying. Pencils, mainly, they often serve as the first indication that they are irreversibly like other girls. Parenthesis, oh my god, my eye is watering super bad. Girls love to be unlike other girls because of the lies we are told about what other girls are like. There's like so much truth to that, and I thought it was so funny because how often as booktubers do we talk about the repetition of this not like other girls trope? I thought that was funny. Throughout this book, something I really kind of didn't like, especially when we are talking about trying to be more inclusive or more equal between things that boys and girls can do, should be the same. And then there's people who don't identify as male or female. I felt like that being kind of what our modern world is kind of going towards, and a lot of authors are trying to kind of cater to that a lot. I found this very surprising that there were so many boy versus girl judgments throughout this book, and I think I flagged quite a few of them from what I read, but here's one. Girls, on the other hand, are master idolaters. They're like Catholics in that way, or Satanists, all gilded shrine and ceremony, all theme and ritual and symbol. They hunger for the gaudy trappings of faith. Why is that only true for girls? That started to actually, I could see overlooking it if there was just one reference to this boy versus girl thing, but there was quite a few incidences in here where I was kind of like, why is that only a boy thing? Or why is that only a girl thing? Serena radiated perfect nonchalance, stretching one leg and then the other as she read. Now, I see what a firm grip she had, how rigidly she composed every scene, the life of tableaux vivants she built up around herself. Now I imagine the way she must have propped herself up, just so, waiting for us. That is actually, I really liked that part, because you know there are certain people who are just like, how are they always just so perfect all the time? Like, they seem like they're perfect, but it probably doesn't come naturally. Like, they probably know exactly what they're doing, or it's just your perception because you hold someone high on a pedestal. Okay, here is a bunch of notes on this paragraph related. Not long ago, I read that our impulse to bite cute things is simply a product of cognitive overloading. Our brains are chemically confused by too much cuteness. This is so cute it hurts, we say. In fact, it does hurt. Our brains interpret confusion as a threat, and a threat is pain. So an emergency neutral signal is sent out. Destroy, destroy, destroy. I'll eat you up, I love you so, etc. Mouths open, jaws and fingers flex. Our societal norms generally prevent us from ripping the soft downy heads off other people's babies, no matter how unbearable they smell, and so we nip and nibble, make exclamations of edibleness. This is how we trick our brains into believing the threat has been disabled. My note was, I can't agree. Is this girl crazy? Yeah, I thought that was quite dramatic or excessive and does not apply to everybody. Because she's saying, this is how we all react. It's said in science, this is how we all think and associate. And I'm like, no, not me. Speak for yourself. On this side note, I wrote, sorry, that's stupid. 13-year-old who knows dirty words knows better. I don't know. True story. The true story began like this. And a boy approached me and said, I like your tits. Oh, I said, looking down at them. New swollen things. Thanks. I did not know yet. Not to be flattered in these scenarios. The boy wasn't ugly, but he wasn't handsome either. Do you know what a pussy is? He asked. I blushed as I reported this. but it felt like an important part of the story. Yes, I said. I was 13 after all. Back then, I knew everything. Okay. So much is wrong with that paragraph. First of all, she's an idiot and doesn't realize that this guy is being crude to her. Second of all, she doesn't know that that's wrong, but it's not, but she knows what a pussy is. There was another thing in here that I was just like, it's trying so hard to be prophetic and it's just stupid. My note on this: am I too old and cynical to be enlightened by such? We take flowers for granted, though they are absurd things. Little sex-crazed jewel boxes. The reason for a flower is to make another flower, my mother used to say. And it's things like that that were so heavy throughout this book where I was just like, no, I don't know. Next up, a book I DNF'd from 2019. This is a book called 20 by Debora and Engle. Very short little book. This is about a woman who is very depressed and she makes a deal to end her life in 20 days. But in that 20 days, she starts thinking, well, who's gonna take care of like my house and all this stuff? Like, I don't wanna leave a mess for them. So she starts decluttering. The closer she gets to that number 20, she starts to maybe regret her decision. So basically, in a way, it's a suicide note, right? So trigger warnings, because obviously thinking about ending her life. From what I read, I don't know what the deal is. Like, someone's gonna do it for her, or it's just some magical thing. She's just going to go to sleep and that's it. I don't know. I didn't make it that far. I thought it was an interesting concept. Like, I actually requested this book and now I'm like, what? I guess it was intriguing, the idea of it, and I just kind of wanted to see where they were going with it. And I guess probably by the time she gets to 20, either she will change her mind and something will happen, she'll go on living her life, and I think that basically it's going to be a lesson on the value of your life and change her forever, and she will clean up her life and find happiness, which I guess is a good thing. That's not actually what it says. Oh, heartwarming story, a catalyst of inspiration. So I'm assuming that's probably where it's gonna go. I decided I didn't care for the writing as much. I mean, it's fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. It wasn't particularly beautiful, and I kind of just figured I already knew where the story was going, and I'm done. So that's why I DNF'd that book. All right, another book I decided to DNF. Oops, let's get this going because the lighting outside is changing quite a bit. Okay, sorry, this video is very all over the fucking place, isn't it? Okay, the next book I DNF'd was called The Arrangement by Robyn. This is about a girl who gets into sugar daddy, sugar baby relationship or arrangement. Basically, if you don't know what this is, it's basically a deal where a person, I guess boys can do it too, it's mostly associated with girls. Girls become sugar babies, but I suppose boys can do it too. Why not? Anyway, so sugar babies usually get like an allowance and to date this rich person. Some of the perks of dating them is they get to go to fancy restaurants and they get gifts sometimes, fancy shopping trips, traveling. I mean, let's call it what it is. Basically, they're high-class escort and they are meant to not be exclusive, and generally a lot of the guys are probably married. So anyway, this book is about a girl who decided that she really wants to give it a try. She's in a bind for money. One of her friends gets all this money somehow and she's like, how do you do it? And she's like, oh, I'm a sugar baby. So she teaches her all about what it is to be a sugar baby. She's like, oh, could I do that? So she gives it a try. Her friend has several clients and sets her up, and she finds herself a sugar daddy. He is married. Now, before I continue on giving you my opinion of this book, know that I do not judge people for getting into these arrangements. I do not judge these arrangements. In these situations, it is consensual. You enter into these willingly. And it's not my place to judge. I'm not here to judge. And while this guy is cheating on his wife, and basically the devil in most women's eyes, I do have to say, I don't know because I didn't finish reading this book, so I don't know if it goes into what his personal life is like. But in the real world, where people do enter into these arrangements, you have no idea what's going on at home, what the spouse is like, nothing. Now, Now, should somebody cheat on their spouse? I don't really think that that's really the best way to handle an unhappy marriage. Again, not my place. So I definitely just had to put a little disclaimer there because I am not judging these characters or the people that they represent as characters. I'm just judging this book. Because I feel like to judge these characters for their decisions is to judge other people who enter into these relationships, and I don't want to go there. I do not judge people. Yeah, I feel like it's very necessary to enter that disclaimer because while I may not like these characters, to judge them is to judge other people who enter into these relationships, and that's not cool. So, I am judging this book solely. Now, this book, I don't know really what's going on with this author. I kind of really just feel like, since it's been many months and I look back and I'm thinking, what did I really want out of this story? What was I expecting? Why didn't it deliver? How she characterized this female character, the main character, being extremely judgy, yet entering into an arrangement. Post-editing self here. So I forgot to mention, our main character, she used to be, before she started doing this arrangement thing, she actually used to be a party girl. Roommates were frustrated with her because she would just come crashing in at all hours of the night. I believe she's pretty promiscuous. So I really don't know what the author is trying to say here about this character, like, being okay with being promiscuous as long as she's not getting paid for it. So I'm kind of confused by what the author is trying to achieve here. So yeah, that's just something else I really just didn't like about the main character. But consistently fighting against what she's actually doing, I'm like, that I did not like. I really have to wonder if the author wasn't entirely comfortable herself writing on the topic. The main character really had no business getting into an arrangement to begin with. I feel like she was way too judgmental. So her friend who got her into this, she treats it like it's a business, and she has several clients, and she knows that she is temporary and that her clients are going to go home to their wives, and they're not going to leave their wives to marry her and whisk her off to this magical wonderland. So she goes on the first couple of dates, and she's like, I'm really not comfortable sleeping with him. And he's respectful. He's like, okay, fine. You know, whatever. Like, I just want to spend time with you. And, like, we've entered into this relationship. I guess our main character kind of missed the memo on this whole temporary thing. So that their wives don't get suspicious. That's basically the nature of this beast. And so I guess our main character just didn't get the memo. And so she latches on to her sugar daddy. And maybe, now I can't tell you if he does want to leave his wife for her too and like falls in love with her, negates the purpose of writing a book about arrangements. So she like immediately starts falling in love with him and expecting a commitment and wanting him to like leave his wife for her. I actually liked her character at first, and I found her sense of humor like the kind of sense of humor that I like. But she completely changed when she started getting into these relationships. She consistently judged the whole thing, but continued to pursue it. I really don't know what came after because I really didn't like it. After like 2 dates, she was wanted to like turn this into a real relationship before she slept with them. And I can see how that statement could be misinterpreted. We want that connection before we can feel comfortable with sleeping with somebody. Maybe not all of us, but I feel like a lot of people want that connection before they feel comfortable sleeping with somebody because they need to feel like there's some sort of intimacy there and trust. But what I mean is, I feel like the author was uncomfortable here because the idea of her main character sleeping with somebody for money and not having any emotional attachment or commitment, which I feel like that's on error of the author. What I wanted from this book was to learn about arrangements, what it's like, what the clients are like, the good, the bad, the ugly, the controversial, or why even write a book about arrangements if you're just going to spin it into this romance. I just felt like the author was afraid to take us there. I would have liked the story to be from the friend's perspective because she was like a pro, and I'm sure she had a lot of interesting characters that she came along and how business dealings go and things like that. Now it is officially time for me to get going to go pick up my son from school. I did have another couple books on this list, but I think this is actually a pretty good place to stop. I covered the books I really wanted to actually get out there and give my opinion on, and so that was the goal of this video. So I gotta go. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.